their main argument was, and has been, is that very simple. There was no genocidal intention of Ottoman authorities. They argued that, their argument is very simple, today also, you cannot show one single evidence, one single document that showed genocidal intent of Ottoman authorities, that Ottoman government intentionally exterminated the Armenians. It's not there. This is the reason the Turkish government and Tayyip Erdogan occasionally says, let's set up a historian commission and we should look our archives, and the argument is there is no such a document. Indeed, the entire genocide was organized actually as a legal deportation policy. It was a relocation policy. 1915 May, Ottoman government made a decision based on the development of the war to relocate Armenian population from the entire Anatolia into Syria, today's Syria and North Iraq, and resettle them. And they called the entire process resettlement policy. Ottoman archives today are full of documents that explains us these resettlement policies. So this is the main Turkish argument, and they say there was no intention to exterminate Armenians. Of course, it was the war years. We couldn't control the mountains, the Kurdish mountains. We couldn't control the arid deserts and so on. Yeah, some people, Turks and some bandits attacked the Armenians. We tried to do our best to protect the Armenian deportation convoys there. We couldn't, but we tried, some of them even in the court. This is the main argument, and there is no decision, central decision to exterminate the Armenians. And this is the main core, and I will deal with these arguments today. It is a very important argument, Turkish government's denialist argument, because you all think that facts, opinions and interpretations are two different things. You all believe that there are facts, and facts make the truth, and Turkish government or our authorities, they deny the facts, and so they deny the truth. And you think that denialism is actually denying the facts and denying the truth. This is not true. Denialism is not simple denying the truth or denying the fact. Denialism has its own fact and has its own truth. There is really nebulous territory between facts and truth where denialism germinates. So the denialism marshals its own facts and it has all its truth. How do they create this image? How do they create their world of facts and truth? I use a model developed by a Chicago anthropologist, Michel Roth-Trullo. He wrote an excellent book with the title Silencing the Past, and he analyzed in his book how the authorities, how the power silence the past, recreate and re-establish a past that fits to their narrative. He developed a model that has 4 stages. The first moment, he says, the creation of the facts, so the making of sources. In order to silence the history, in order to deny the historical happiness, what happened in history, you have to create your own sources. Second, the moment of fact assembly. This means creation, making of archive. You bring all this material together, you make your own archive, and then you say, this is our archive, let's look all together in that archive. And third step moment, he says, based on these facts and the archive, you start to narrate a story. According to our facts, according to our documents, this is the history that we are telling you. And then, as a fourth moment, he says the retrospective significance of the story that you are telling, this is the national history. The governments are vehemently defense their national history. This became the national Turkish narrative on 1915 Armenian genocide. And I added a fifth instance, the fifth moment to that, the moment of destroying and or proving the falsity of critical documents. This is what Turkish government also did. They consciously destroyed certain documents that prove the genocidal intent, and also they deny the authenticity of some other critical documents. So what the Turkish government did is they developed three-level operation that has three levels. Number one, Turkish authorities, the Ottoman authorities, beginning of 1915, they started assemble their own facts and archive. And number two, an important other stage that they developed, they hide and destroy the main bulk of documentary evidence that clearly showed the genocidal intent of the Ottoman authorities. Today, with confidence, as a historian of that period, I can tell you there are four main group of materials that has been either destroyed or still hidden somewhere in the basement of either military archive in Ankara or either in general Ottoman archive in Istanbul. What are these four main bulk of documentary evidence that I'm talking about? Number one, the material belonged to a special organization. The name of the organization is special organization. It is like the Einsatzgruppen during Holocaust or the SS, a special paramilitary unit belonged to Defense Ministry that operated under the military. And this organization was established in 1913, first used during the expulsion of the Greek population in the Aegean coast, 1914 spring and summer months, and these paramilitary units then employed during Armenian genocide to attack the convoy and exterminate the Armenians. Where are the materials related to these units? Gone. Nobody knows where the material belonged to these two special organizations. It's gone. I searched personally the Ottoman archive. You can only find a couple documents related the salaries of some officials that appointed by government to these units. Nothing else. This is number one. Number two, the party that organized the Armenian genocide, its name is Committee of Union and Progress, CUP. Today, we don't have any single document that belonged to the Central Committee's record of these documents. If you study the Russian material on the Lithuanian, Latvian policy, you can go and you can look in Russia, the Bolshevik Party archive or the Communist Party archive. There are some materials available there for you. If you go to Turkey and say to the Ottoman archival authorities that I want to work on the CUP, they would say, I'm sorry, we don't have any material related to this party central committee decision. You cannot find any. The second group of material, gone. We don't know where they are. We have some rumors, some stories, what happened to them. Third, some files of Interior Ministry. They are gone. We don't know where these materials are. How do we know that some materials from Interior Ministry were gone? Very simple. We know that because of the number 4 that I have here on the list. This is the Military Tribunals 1919-1921. When the Ottoman government lost the war, First World War 1918, a new government came to power. And post-war government started trials in Istanbul. They tried the previous government's member and the Committee of Union and Progress member in a series of military tribunals in Istanbul. This was very important. There were altogether 63 trials in Istanbul and approximately more than 200 defendants. At the end, there were 16 death penalties, 3 were hanged, and 16 death penalties. The doctor report, and you have the doctor report. And not enough. This is another testimony for you. This is the testimony of the Urfa Armenian Church priest, Father Hayrevet. Father Hayrevet, the priest, was taken also to the scene. He says, I was taken to the scene, I saw the body, and I was told that he passed away because of a heart attack, and I buried him according to our religious tradition. This is the second testimony for you. And the third one is another document, official document, again Ottoman document. Interior Minister Talat says that Zohrab died as a result of an accident during his journey. This is the official telegram. And it is also not enough. Daily Ottoman newspaper published on that day, July 21st, that he was government official statement that Zohrab passed away as a result of an heart attack. And Zohrab's wife was also informed that Zohrab passed away as a result of an heart attack. Now you are a student here at Latvian University, and your history professor asked you to go and research about Zohrab's death. We, the critical scholar or Armenian, will say, yeah, he was killed by Teşkilat-ı Mahsusa unit. What is the evidence? We don't have much evidence in our hand. How many documents I have here? Doctor report, testimony of the priest of Urfa, interior minister's document, daily newspapers, and Zohrab's wife declaration for you that he was informed. 5 different documents. Which one is the truth? You see, truth and facts and denialism is not simply to separate. This is the important part. Really, we should understand that denialism has its own facts and its own truth. This is one way of Turkish denialism has been working over the decades. The other 2 major movements that I mentioned to you, hiding and destroying the evidence or proving the falsity of critical documents. And one major Turkish argument is show us the origin. So we critical scholar, we claim that Turkish government, Ottoman government, organized an Armenian genocide in a way that they consciously exterminate Armenian people. There was a genocidal intent. And their argument is, show us the origin. Show us one single document that shows this genocidal intent. Here what we are talking about. I mentioned to you about the tribunals in Istanbul and about these 63 different trials. One of these trials, we call it central trial, the main tribunal. And this is related to the member of the Central Committee, member of the Committee of Union and Progress, so some party members, and the member of the government. They were tried in one case, and we call it the main trial, and the indictment for this main trial was published in official Ottoman Gazette 3540, and it was read in the first session 28 April, and this was published by Ottoman government May 5th, 1919. We historians, we use this material, this is my PhD topic actually, and we know because public prosecutor made a lot of citations from several documents that they got hand during the tribunal. One of the documents belonged to a man with the name Bahattin Shakir, and the guy's important because he was the head of special organization that I'm talking about. He was in charge of coordinating the entire killing operation. And this is a telegram Ottoman government found out during the trials. And in the telegram, Bahattin Shakir says, are the Armenians being dispatched from there, being liquidated? Are these troublesome people you say you have expelled and dispersed being exterminated or deported? Answer explicitly. This is very clear that the guy coordinating the killing operation and asking whether the Armenian in that city already being exterminated there or being sent somewhere else to be exterminated. And the second document is from an army commander, Mahmud Kamil Pasha. He was the commander of the Third Army, and Third Army was in charge of entire eastern Turkey, which is historic Armenia, and this is bulk of Armenian population lived during that period. And when the deportation started, something happened. Muslims in the area started taking Armenian families and hiding them in their houses. And the number of Armenians who were saved by Muslim families was so high, Ottoman government had to intervene. And Third Army commander sent a circular to all army units and the local Turkish authorities saying that those who have been hiding and maintaining Armenians in opposition to government orders be hanged in front of their properties and their properties burned to the ground. Whoever hides an Armenian, we will kill him and we will burn his house. These are hard evidence that shows the genocidal intent of the Ottoman authorities. What is Turkish argument? Government's argument? Show us the original. How should we know that the public prosecutor really quoting from some documents? How do we know that he distorts the material? So, this is the main argument. And this is the other important issue that I mentioned to you. This is what the Aramandonian document, and here is one example to you. I mentioned this Turkish bureaucrat, Naim Efendi, sold some material to Aramandonian, and Aramandonian published these in his book. And this is one document. You notice that here, this is what you should know that these are 3-digit Arabic numbers, and these Arabic, each 3-digit, each group of 3 Arabic numbers is equal for an Arabic work during that time. And this is a killing order coming from Istanbul to Aleppo. This is the receiving end, and the Ottoman bureaucrat already decoded this telegram. If you put these Arabic letters together, then you have this text here. And in text it says, Committee of Union and Progress decided to completely annihilate all Armenians, and says no matter how tragic the method of annihilation might be, their existence must be ended. This is direct killing order. Or another one, again the same, 3-digit, an order coming to Aleppo saying that destroy the children. Even the children must be exterminated. And what is the Turkish government's reaction today to that document? Always fake, Armenian fakeness. One central argument they made, Ottoman government never used 3-digit coding system. They said Ottoman government used 4-digit and 5-digit coding system. This is a total different discussion, but I published in my book several 3-digit coding system so that, show that it's not a correct way of dealing with that problem. So, let me jump to that main problem, to come slowly to the point. What was the main Turkish argument? They were asking us, show us the origin. In my book, Killing Order, I showed them the origins. This is the important, really, contribution of my book. These are the telegrams, one of the telegrams that Turkish governments have been hiding in their basement somewhere. We have now in our hand the originals of these materials. How did I get access to these materials? The main access is because of a guy with the name, if I go there, yeah, you can, I think you should do that with this.
I should, okay.
A guy, a Catholic priest with the name Krikor Gergerian, he filled an important, just click on the Krikor Gergerian. If it doesn't show, you have to...
I'm trying here. It's not
click.
working.
Yeah, it's working. Okay, if it doesn't work, this is the archive where I put the entire material, and you can...
Here it comes.
Oh. It's not working, it's okay. It doesn't matter.
It's on the side.
Krikor Gerger is a Catholic priest, and or let me put another history for you. It's the topic for a documentary movie. Armenian Patriarchate in Istanbul was representing the Armenians throughout the trials. And according to Ottoman law, they had the access to court materials. And they made copies, or they took some handwritten original copies of these materials and kept them safe. When Turkish nationalists took over Istanbul, 1922, just before that, Armenian Patriarch Zaven Efendi in Istanbul said that it's better I take care of these documents. He sent these materials all the way to Manchester in Great Britain, because there was another Catholic priest living in Manchester. And these around 20 boxes, original Istanbul tribunal materials, these materials went to Manchester. From Manchester it went to Marseille, and from Marseille it went to Jerusalem. Jerusalem Armenian Patriarchate has these materials. It's closed to scholar. We don't know why they kept these documents, military tribunals materials, closed. 1916, Father Krikor Gergerian went to Jerusalem, filled all these materials, and came to New York. He was living in New York. He passed away in 1988. And we knew that he has these materials. Some historian knew that. And we didn't have access to his private archive. It's an amazing story. In 2015, finally, the nephew allowed me to see the materials. And this is where I discovered these documents that I'm talking about.
I don't know how to make that show up there.
This is, let's go to my case.
Okay.
Yes, I think I should go from here. So this is the original, one of the documents that came out during these trials. And as I mentioned you, in the document, it says, are the Armenians being dispatched from there, being liquidated and being exterminated? This is the, or just reported. You see this is the letterhead of Interior Ministry, and they cannot deny the authenticity of this document. We showed them the original. But the story is not ends there. This is the story that I'm going to tell you now is the reason why New York Times called me the Sherlock Holmes of Armenian genocide. As you see here, there are 4-digit numbers. And this is 1749, for example. And this, each 4-digit is equal either for suffix ending, for a word, or for a plural ending. For example, in the document, the word sent off, deport, is Sevk 4889, and the word serve 2469, or the word Armenian is 8159. What I did, and the document is from 1915 July. I worked in Ottoman archive a couple of months, and I went through the entire Ottoman documents that are available from 1915-16 that includes these kind of coding numbers. And I discovered something amazing. This is an Ottoman document today available in Ottoman archive. It's an harmless document. It doesn't say anything, but it has the word Armenian in it. And what is the code? 8519 for the Armenian. And what is the code here for us? 8519 for Armenian. And it is the same coding system. So not only the letterhead is similar, but the coding system, exact same coding system. So Turkish government cannot deny the authenticity. Had an order saying that whoever hides an Armenian in the houses, his houses will be burned down and Armenian will be hanged. And here is this Ottoman document, again, Interior Ministry's letterhead, and this is the Interior Ministry's seal that it's confirmed the originality of this document, and it is among the court records. So we can show Turkish authorities the originals of the documents. And in my book also I show that these Talat Pasha telegrams are also authentic, and the authenticity cannot be denied. So by doing so, I think we have the evidence that Turkish authorities really were lying, denying the historic truth, and I think they should now change their narrative about their denial. They should find some other stories. Definitely, they will continue to deny, but they cannot say that there is no direct killing order of Ottoman governments. There is, and they cannot deny the authenticity, because even coding systems are the same with these documents that they have in Ottoman archive. So I hope they will try to change their narrative, and I hope also the governments in the world, or the NGOs, or the world public opinion understand at the end there are not two sides of opinion, there are not Turkish version or Armenian version, there is only one version, what the materials are and what these materials are telling to us. Thank you very much for this.
I'd like to talk about primarily are two things. One, why should we care? Let me give you an example to make this question more relevant. In the 1st century AD, after Christ, the Emperor Claudius writes that someone should write down the Etruscan language, because at this point it's only spoken by servants and slaves. And if no one writes it down, it will be lost. And lo and behold, it was never written down. And therefore we have thousands and thousands of Etruscan inscriptions, and no one really knows what they're saying. This is terrible. This is sad. It's a fact. And this is an historical fact. And you say, well, what difference does it make? Right? So, what we're talking about today, and what Professor Akçam, one of my very good friend Tanir, is talking about, and by the way, thank you for having us here. I jumped right into my topic, is something that someone could say, well, look, these events took place 100 years ago. What difference do they make? Why should we care? Why should Tanir and I fly from the United States, spend hour upon hour learning the facts of an event that took place 100 years ago. Why should we care? That's question number one. Question number two is, why does Turkey keep on denying what is obviously a fact? Right? Now, I will start with the second question. Why does Turkey deny? And then I will fold into the first question is, why should we care? So let's start with the second. Why does Turkey deny this? Well, I think Tanya and I agree that denialism is actually a part of the genocide. Let me try to put this in a bigger way. We know that Raphael Lemkin, who coined the word genocide, and coined it because he was struck by a court case that took place in Berlin after the assassination of truly the mastermind behind all of this, whose name is Talat Pasha. And Talat Pasha was in Berlin, and Siobhan came out as part of a project and killed him. And then there was this big trial. And the trial was interesting. It's a show trial. Many things can be said about this and should be said about this, but I don't want to talk about this now. What happened is, as the trial was going on, and it's my contention that the Germans were doing everything in their power to have him not incriminated for this, because their hands were dirty too. There was a young man in Poland whose name was Raphael Lemkin, who was a glossologist. He studied language, and he was taken by this trial, and he realized that there was something about this trial that showed something extremely important about how the cultural situation in the West was unfolding. Okay, and that's going to bring me into the first question. So let's just start with why they are denying. Now, he studied this, and he went to a professor, and the professor tells him the famous chicken story. Right?
They don't know the chicken story.
Oh, I'll tell the chicken story. The chicken story is very simple. He said, why do you care? Back to my question. If a farmer decides to kill his own chickens, there is nothing you can do, or we can do. Likewise, if a nation, because of its sovereignty, decides to kill a part of its own population, there is nothing we can do. Right. So here we have the Ottoman Turks killing the Ottoman Armenians. This is their problem, it's not ours. Raphael Lemkin is not satisfied with this. He starts to study jurisprudence, and he starts really bothering the League of Nations, saying, something must be done about this, this will be repeated, something will be done about this, this will be repeated. And they thought he was crazy. He thought the original word he was using was vandalism and barbarism. That's how he was trying to define what happened to the Armenians. So vandalism, theft, and barbarism, just killing and destroying monuments. And he realized that this was just so huge that something had to be done. And so he, like silly idiots like you and me, Tanya, he was so focused and so whatever that he went on and he pushed and tried to reformulate and finally came up with the word genocide. And the purist who is I does not like the word because it's, genos is of course the Greek, and kaide is a Latin verb, and I hate mixtures, it's just ugh. But the Armenian word sebas balmukun I like very much, because it's one language, so that's fine, that's just me, okay? What is genocide? What was he trying to capture? And why is it so important for us today? Genocide is the creation of a narrative. It's the creation of a narrative and the imposition of a narrative upon a people, upon a geographical location. And that narrative is meant to explain certain facts and also to encapsulate the reason for those facts. You see, it's a cause. It's a story. We know the Nazis had a huge story, right? The master race, the Aryan race, Germany.
The genocide victims, generally of all genocides. And yesterday was the Human Rights Day, International Day. So we thought that it would be good to have a tour and talk about the denial of, in our case, the Armenian genocide, because the genocide resolutions and convention, for the resolutions which are referring to the convention are, especially the 2018 resolution, are referring to the denial as an important factor of impeding prevention of genocide in the future. So if there is a denial of genocide, it's paving way to other genocides in the future. So it's extremely important that we have such talks and such presentations, and especially the recent findings on this issue on the Armenian genocide. I would also like to tell you that your university library, as well as the Latvian National Library, are they have a lot of materials on the Armenian. Recently, there was one Armenian student writing to us and saying, we want to write a thesis and we don't know where we can find books. But I said, I mean, go to the National Library of Latvia. And there you can see the German archival materials, American, British archival, Henry Morgenthau's memoirs, etc. Professor Akçam's books. We'll get also Professor Nash-Marshal's books. And so there is a lot of material that, so if there is an interest, you can just go to your university library or National Library, are enriched with these materials.
Answer the second question, the archives. What are the archives open? Every archive that we are talking about are open 8 a.m. in the morning or 9 a.m. in the morning and close 5:30 in the evening. So this openness of the archives, the term is a little bit weird. All archives are open. The problem is which kind of material you receive when you go to these archives. Regarding Turkish archives, we have two major archives related to Armenian genocide. We are dealing with a time period, the First World War mainly, and you have material to that period in two archives. One is what we call it Prime Ministerial Archive, or you heard this as Ottoman Archive. These are the archival materials belong to Prime Minister, and especially the documents that are related to our topic is the documents of Ottoman Interior Ministry. These materials are available to everyone, even in Ankara. You can go in Ankara to the archive, the presidential archive. You have electronically access to the archive in Istanbul. Ottoman archive today is one of the best organized archive in the world. And it is a walking archive. You don't need to make a reference beforehand. You don't need to apply beforehand. You go morning, I don't know whether you have ever go to British Archive or other archive, you go there, they take your picture, and you have your picture, and you enter and you go. This is one of the really perfect archives. But keep in mind, not only the Ottomans or Turks, all governments in the world, they never present entire materials that they have to your permission. In Ottoman archive, we have access only maybe 50–60% of the original documents. The rest, you don't have the access. I told you, there is no material on the military tribunal. Where are they? You don't know. The Interior Minister Archive, you don't know. I just mentioned you. In every village, without exaggerating, in every village, in county, in province, they took ledgers on Armenian properties. There are orders, we know that, and 2 copies of properties. One should stay in the town, and the second copy should be sent to Istanbul. Today, Turkish Ottoman government has entire list of Armenian properties. And when Tayyip Erdogan or the Turkish government asks, all our archives are open, we should set up a commission, we scholars, we say that you don't need to set up a commission. Just publish these materials, make them available for us. There is no access, you cannot get these materials. Okay, this is number one. Archive is open, but there is a scarcity, there is a scarcity of materials there. You can get only 50% of these documents, not more. And in American archives, same, you can get maybe 95%. They keep, every state keeps certain amount of their materials secret. The problem is the openness with the archive, the amount of the material that they hide actually. And in Turkish case, it's very high. And there is second archive. This is the military archive in Ankara. It is practically closed. It's an open archive from 9 a.m. in the morning until 5 p.m., but they allow only the individual that they like, not the other. This is the military archive. So this is the, and in Armenia the archives are open, and you can go there anytime. The problem with Armenian archive, the national archive to all scholars. And to the first question, the correct, that the Turkish government said that it was the correct action that is done at a perfect time. Yes, Turkey back to its default settings. This argument that it was good at that time and necessity to remove Armenians is the original Turkish argument. First time they published a book in 1916. We call it White Book. And in this White Book, they made this claim that it was necessary to remove Armenians because of one central reason. Armenians became a security threat for Ottoman state to conduct the war. Their main argument was that Armenians were preparing an organized attempt and uprising against Ottoman state, and they were already started organizing and conducting some terrorist act behind the line of Ottoman army in order to conduct war and in order to be able to secure the boundaries and in order to get the preemptive measures to prevent a possible uprising, we had to remove the Armenians. Are they the facts? No, but this is their perception. And they read the Einsatztruppen defense after the Holocaust. In the Einsatztruppen court case or in the Nuremberg tribunal, individual Nazi leader will tell you this story. We had to remove the Jews because of the security problem, and the Jewish partisans were conducting military actions behind the German army, and we had to remove them as a security measure. Believe me, in all major genocides, genocide was organized as a preemptive measure because the perpetrator really or imaginally considered themselves threatened, and in order to prevent this threat, they had to exterminate the origin of the threat. And in our case, it was the Armenians. Was there really a coordinated plan of Armenian uprising in any of the areas that we are talking? To my knowledge, no. We don't have any evidence for an organized Armenian uprising in eastern provinces. But it's not important. The perception is important. If you see one Jewish brigade there, the Jewish partisan, along with Polish guy, fighting against the German border, then it is enough evidence for you, and evidence of a coordinated action of the uprising. This is how the Turkish authorities interpreted certain Armenian activities. We know there were several events during that period. For example, there were Armenian deserters from army. They hid themselves on the mountains, in Bitlis, Mush, one area. And Ottoman government was, after this came, the news about it, how many of these bandits are Armenians? How many of them are Greeks? How many of them Muslims? Because these were deserters from the army. So it's not so important whether Armenians were organizing these uprising. This was the perception of Turkish authorities, their perception of Armenians, that they considered Armenian as a security threat. And you can compare this with Nazi racial ideology. Nazis considered Jews as a threat to the existence of German nation. So the ideology was the main dominator. I think this is my answer to your question.